So first, Rick Perry. So I just left Standing Rock, honestly. There's a lot less people at the main Osheti Sakoi camp. I did a report on that yesterday from camp. But the fight continues, and Donald Trump picking Rick Perry as energy secretary doesn't help matters. Sorry, moving a little so I'm out of the light. Doesn't help the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. It only intensifies it. So Rick Perry, governor of Texas, some of his biggest donors in his career are oil and gas. So I want to tell you his relationship with Energy Transfer Partners. Energy Transfer Partners, of course, is the pipeline, the parent company for Dakota Access Pipeline. One second, I'm trying to move so I'm not in the light. That's a little better. So Energy Transfer Partners is the company that is funding Dakota Access Pipeline. Kelsey Warren, their CEO, has gone on PBS, CBS, said crazy things. Well, guess who the number 2 donor to Rick Perry is over his career? His top household donors to Rick Perry, 1998 through 2016. Kelsey and Amy Warren. That's Kelsey Warren, CEO of Energy Transfer Partners, and his wife. They've donated to Rick Perry $1,780,000 in 2 decades. So Kelsey Warren has been one of Rick Perry's top sugar daddies. And now Rick Perry is being named the energy secretary when Donald Trump has expressed possible interest in approving permits for the Dakota Access Pipeline through Lake Oahe and North Dakota. So almost $2 million donated by Kelsey Warren to Rick Perry over his career. That's not even the worst of it. Rick Perry, 2 weeks after ending his term as governor in Texas, joined the board of Energy Transfer Partners. That's right, Rick Perry currently is a board member of Energy Transfer Partners, the parent company for the Dakota Access Pipeline. Let me give you the numbers. So he joined Energy Transfer Partners 2 weeks after he left the governor's office. He's also on the board of Sunoco Logistics. Sunoco Logistics just bought Energy Transfer Partners. So basically, Sunoco Logistics and Energy Transfer Partners are one. They've merged, and Rick Perry is on the board of both of them. In 2015, Perry made $107,000 in cash and $255,000 in stock awards for his role as board members to Energy Transfer Partners. So, for being a former governor and sitting on a board, he made $107,000 in cash and $255,000 in stock options for this role. Now, Perry, if certified as the energy secretary, will have to get off the board. You know, you can't stay on the board of oil companies. I'm assuming he'll have to sell his shares in the company, but we know how this works. It's not like he's suddenly, is going to be pushing for wind and solar and, pushing against climate change. This is a governor who has taken as much money as possible from big oil and gas. I'm going to tell you those numbers now. So for the 2016 election cycle, Rick Perry, you probably forget, actually ran and dropped out, I think, like in September of 2015. I could be wrong about that. But Rick Perry was running his second time. Guess who gave him the most amount of money, his campaign? Energy Transfer Partners gave him $1,518,000. $1,518,000. Energy Transfer Partners, Kelsey Warren, CEO, gave Rick Perry and his super PACs $1,518,000. So, I mean, when Donald Trump says he wants to drain the swamp, this is the swamp, and they're both in knee-deep, muddy as hell. So, the bottom line is, Obama might have denied the easement, and there might be a court hearing. There is going to be a court hearing in February because a U.S. district judge would not feed into Energy Transfer Partners' request to have an expedited ruling. So there will be a court hearing in February where, technically speaking, the judge could overturn the Army Corps of Engineers denying the permit. However, Donald Trump becomes president January 21st. Rick Perry, if approved as energy secretary, will come in soon after that. Obviously, pipelines like Dakota Access Pipeline and other pipelines were discussed when President-elect Trump and Rick Perry discussed the role of Energy Secretary. So obviously, if Perry is on the board currently of the parent company of the pipeline, he is for the pipeline. And he hasn't really shown much, let's say, empathy or concern for Native American land, for water, for climate change. This is an oil and gas guy. He's from Texas. Texas is oil and gas, the utopia for oil and gas. So can Energy Transfer Partners, even if the court ruling doesn't go, resubmit those permits and Trump fast track it? Again, the Army Corps, in a theoretical world, makes the decisions, but let's not mistake that the Army Corps just unilaterally decides above the president. So this is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this is very, very troubling that he would appoint Rick Perry as the Energy Secretary. Again, just last year, he made $107,000 in cash and $255,000 in stock options from the company that's trying to put the Dakota Access Pipeline through. And in his entire career, Kelsey Warren, the CEO of Energy Transfer Partners, is number 2 in donations, $1,780,000 he's given Rick Perry from 1998 to 2016. So what does this mean? I've said all along, just because the permit was denied to drill under, that doesn't mean this is over. As I've shown you in videos that are up on youtube.com/TYTpolitics, there's still people at the main Osheti-Sukhoi camp. There's still bank divestment campaigns going on around the country. Tomorrow I will be in New York City. Shailene Woodley, Josh Fox, and others are going to be protesting outside Wells Fargo and Citigroup's corporate offices in New York City. I will be there. So there's activities going on. But to me, what Donald Trump nominating Rick Perry means, and I'm not trying to whip up fear, but I'm just telling you my honest analysis, he's telegraphing that he is for this pipeline because he's choosing an energy secretary who is very clearly for this pipeline. He's coming from Energy Transfer Partners. And by the way, let's not pretend that even if Rick Perry gets off the board of Energy Transfer Partners, if Rick Perry sells his shares, it's like that old super PACs aren't supposed to talk to the campaigns, so they don't. Obviously, Rick Perry is going to be in communication with Kelsey Warren, who's been his sugar daddy, giving him almost $2 million in 2 decades. Obviously, Energy Transfer Partners is going to have a direct line to the Energy Secretary and, by extension, the President. So this fight is just beginning, folks. The mobilization against Donald Trump, Rick Perry, and the whole apparatus that wants to put pipelines like this through natural land, through water, everything be damned. It's obviously they're not going down without a fight. So the time to mobilize is now, before Trump gets into office. I'm not going to tell you how to mobilize it, but I will cover it. But you know where Trump lives, Trump Tower, New York City. You know where he will live, the White House. So I wouldn't wait for Trump to get into office to start protesting, to start putting maximum pressure on him and Rick Perry. I do it now. And I'd start questioning Trump supporters who voted supposedly for a candidate who is going to drain the swamp, who is going to drain the corruption. As Cenk puts it best, he's not draining the swamp, he is the swamp. This is a corporate coup d'etat of our government. Obviously, the government was already run by corporations, but this is just the final nail in the coffin. You're literally giving Energy Transfer Partners, Kelsey Warren, a unofficial seat at the table. So I want to make sure we're all aware of the financial connections between Rick Perry and Energy Transfer Partners. And again, Donald Trump is not having meetings with Rick Perry and not discussing the pipeline that is the biggest environmental story in the nation. So Donald Trump knows where Rick Perry stands, and by extension, Rick Perry knows where Donald Trump stands. And this is how politics works. Now, Rick Perry, it's time to pay back his puppet masters. It's time to pay back Kelsey Warren. It's time to pay back Energy Transfer Partners. So don't think Rick Perry, as one of his top missions, is going to try to get Donald Trump to reverse the decision by the Army Corps and President Obama to deny the permit. It could take a little while because they're supposedly supposed to do an environmental impact study that could take between 6 months and 6 to 18 months. But with Donald Trump, who knows, they could do it in 15 minutes and just rubber stamp it through. So everybody's got to be vigilant about that. So one more thing about Dakota Access, a lot of people have asked me, because I reported a few days ago that the Army Corps is going to flood the main camp. And I trust my sources who told me that. Other people have come down my throat saying I'm wrong. Well, I was actually just in touch with my source again, and I've reconfirmed that basically what happened is chairman of the Osheti-Sakoi camp, Dave Archibald, had a meeting with Governor Jack Dalrymple, with representatives for Dakota Access Pipeline, as well as the Army Corps. That meeting took place December, the night before, the day before he announced that Water Protect non-natives and natives should had to leave Osheti-Sakoi camp. He met with the governor, Dakota Access Pipeline staffers, as well as the Army Corps. And they agreed that the Army Corps would release one of the dams. Obviously, they have several dams on the water. They would release one of the dams. What that does is that slowly moves the water levels up. It doesn't happen overnight where, they release the dam and then it just floods right away. It slowly raises the water level. And I have people who have been out there who have sent me pictures showing that the water has already been risen a little bit. So, no, I'm a journalist, so I'm not going to tell you my sources if they don't want to be named. But I trust them. I don't report things unless I have very good sources or I trust it myself. So you take that with whatever grain of salt you want to. But the key there is it's not going to happen overnight. My sources tell me, give or take, about 2.5 months. And that's not even to mention the natural flooding that will happen anyway in that area, because that area, the elevation of the main camp, is prone to flooding, especially when you get the ice dams, the dams that are frozen into ice. Once the ice melts, you have flooding. So I'm very confident that the Army Corps has already released one of the dams. And I would, if you're living on that land or you know people still living there, I would make sure they know to be on the lookout, because in a month and a half, 2 months, 2.5 months, depending on weather, that area is in jeopardy of being flooded. I'm assuming they would get people out before then. They're not going to just let people be flooded to death. But it is North Dakota, so crazier things have happened. So if you haven't watched my videos yet, youtube.com/TYTpolitics. There is a playlist for Native Americans fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. I think there's over like 130 videos in there. Also, the Young Turks will be sending a reporter in my absence. They might be going to Standing Rock. They might be going elsewhere where the pipeline is being built. So they're going to stay on the story of the Dakota Access Pipeline. I'm not positive yet if that person is coming to Standing Rock or to Iowa or Illinois where they're building the pipeline. But that person should be coming in to replace me this week. We're going to stay on the pipeline as Cenk promised.